Then the other one is
I think we're streaming. I could get on the other app.
that be able to carry a gun without a
Yeah. Concealed.
CCW.
And you don't have to tell anybody that you have it.
We're hoping the governor vetoes that.
That just makes me frightened for our police officers, especially.
Yeah. Something else.
Oh, this keeps. Oh, okay. I'm gonna do this here.
Yeah, let me make sure I have
Satisfied? Fire.
So as it did last time. I don't know why it gave me that thing. Okay, top chat.
How do you talk to these guys?
I take a couple minutes yet, right, to get.
My girlfriend had one, she didn't get it renewed. She had one, my girlfriend, and she didn't get it renewed, because she said they make you get out of the car.
Yeah.
And they, you know, like they're a criminal already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. They can see and hear us.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Great.
Want me to go see on mine if it...
It's up.
You got it? How about the vibe, anybody's?
The video and audio are up. We can see and hear you
Oh,
now.
good.
Okay,
Good,
good.
good.
All right,
Okay,
well, if it's
everybody.
okay with everybody, I'd like to go ahead and start this. The Finance Committee meeting for the Village of Walton Hills, March 8th, 2022 at 5:37. I would like to ask if it's okay with everyone if we switch to other business so we can get Rob in and out. Angela is making some copies for some things for us to look at during the meeting, so is that okay with all committee members?
Yes.
All committee members are present, along with the mayor, Angela Rivet, and Rob Coleman. So, Rob, I asked you about a 5-year plan. I'm assuming this is...
Right, so first, yes, last week during infrastructure, you requested a 5-year plan. I put that together. I'd like to draw your attention to a typo I just saw while I was sitting here. 2026, the F-450 would be $112,000, not $12,000. I attached that, behind my cover sheet, I attached what we keep up to date year to year is our equipment inventory list, which will indicate, and I copied you all on it, it'll indicate the condition of the vehicle, the year the vehicle was put in service, and what the life expectancy is of the vehicle. And then, of course, it'll share with you the year to replace. So the struggle that I had is as easy as one would think it would be to put a 5-year plan together. The struggle that I had is, I started years ago requesting one of the large plow trucks, and for one reason or another, we're keeping them on the road, even though they've exceeded their life expectancy. So to forecast a 5-year plan, when 5 years ago I said we need to start replacing these trucks, so what I did was I had George take a good look at everything, plus there's some pieces of equipment that it only makes sense to keep because we've invested so much money into them from a maintenance repair standpoint. So this is the 5-year plan. We spoke about a chipper and a plow truck to be in the budget this year. Unfortunately, another thing, with forecasting, the plow truck, if we ordered that truck today, we would not receive it until June of '23. So it would not even be on the road for this next snow season, 22-23. So, when you start, I don't know if it's going to still be like that next year or not, But that's even pushing our plan even further out, to get equipment. But all in all, what this does is it kind of puts us back on track. Over the next 5 years, we'll be closer to being on track. Some pickups, we still, have 2001 pickups that hopefully in '23 we could replace. And I know you guys just received this, but if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a couple of questions. Commissioner Calvin, thanks for this 5-year forecast. When you use the term plow truck, and we know you mentioned about snow plowing, can you tell us the other uses, where these trucks are used when they're not plowing? Can you just share that piece?
Well, the majority of the summertime, we can get away with one or two. The plow trucks are the larger, single axle, 30,000, 32,000 pound dump trucks. And we can get away with using one or two of those during the summer. And summer projects would include any right-of-way work. If we're, cutting trees, we load the dump trucks with them. I mean, anything you've used a dump truck for is how they get used in the summer. So that is how we're able to actually go a few more years than what's recommended, because the other thing is we keep all this equipment, it's climate controlled, as far as being heated in the winter. So our 2006 truck, it's not in a horrible position, mechanically it's not in a bad spot, but these are trucks that are constantly used in the salt, and we're spreading salt with them. So to your question, Mr. Whedon, the plow truck W8 and the next one we would replace is plow truck W11. Those are currently actually our backup trucks, and I think they're 94 and 95 respectively. If I jump back on the inventory list.
Correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
So, yeah, we definitely got our use out of them. The whole idea of actually, if we could get on a plan and maintain a plan, is maybe when we sell a truck like W6, we can yield $40,000 to $50,000 for it instead of scrapping it or getting $2,000 for it.
So when you say, is that a trade-in value? Is that how we do it?
We would market that with gov deals. I think they wouldn't take a trade. We would auction it on gov deals. I think that's our best bet.
Okay. And you think 45 maybe?
The people pay ridiculous prices now. It might be more than that, but for sure, $40,000 for sure. But we're not looking at replacing W6 until 2024 in this plan.
Thank you.
There's actually, Rob, 15 items on here that should have already been replaced.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. 'Cause some of the dates are very faded, I can't read a couple
And actually,
of
it
them.
was because it was in color, and a lot of the dates that, yeah, I apologize, but at least the life expectancy is still, you might have to do a little math. It was a colored printout, and I copied it in black and white.
It looks like those that are kind of highlighted that are more difficult to read are the ones that are on the list to be replaced. So because W3 would be 2026
Correct.
and 2024 on W15.
W15, W16 is 2024. And again, with the way this equipment is maintained and kept, it's kept indoors predominantly. That is where we are extremely fortunate, because technically on a loader, the average is 15 years for a loader. That's, when we received that in 2003, we paid $80,000 for it, and it was a great deal. That loader was due to be replaced in 2018, but because we rinse it down every time we're done, and we keep it indoors, I think we can exceed that by several years yet to come. So we took that into consideration when putting the 5-year plan together, that even though there may be age behind some of these, it's how much money we've had to dump into them to keep them going. So if we have something like the loader, it's a Caterpillar loader. It's a real piece of equipment, and it's something we can keep when you get into things outside of machines. And the same thing with our tractors. Our John Deere 4115, that's something that we utilize for snow removal. So that's already seen better days. That had a replacement date of 2020 on that, and technically, I'm not going to ask for a John Deere tractor when I need a plow truck, so that hasn't even hit your guys' radar. Nor, even though it's rusting apart, it works. So it hasn't reached my 5-year plan either.
Can you talk a little bit about the anticipated delivery delay and why that is? Why does it take so long? I know you don't make the vehicle, but you can just your understanding of what that turnaround time looks like and why.
I don't know. I'd be guessing. I really would. And it's across the industries, no matter who you're dealing with, it's availability. It's, we can say it's the ship that got stuck sideways in the Suez. We can say that it's the cargo containers sitting outside of California. I'm not certain, but and that's why Ben's saying, even with parts to fix, how frustrating. We have a leafer that's relatively new. It catches on fire, which it shouldn't have, and then just to get the replacement parts to fix it in-house. I don't think we had it fixed until December. It was way out of the season. It's to acquire parts is obscene. We had a police cruiser that's one of the newer cruisers that sat for months. And what was it? I think there was two dealerships in the United States that had the part we needed, and neither one of them were giving it up.
Right.
So out of all the Ford dealerships, there's almost as many as those as McDonald's. There was only 2 people that had the parts. They wouldn't sell them to us. So it's across the board. It's industry wide, and it's scary. It's scary, especially trying to maintain this plan, and that's something to consider. Once again, depending on finances, if we can do a municipal lease, I would recommend pulling the trigger and getting 2 trucks like I had requested the beginning of this year, the end of last year actually. Because when I think of, I don't have that information in front of me, but I believe the municipal lease is like $34,000, $36,000 per year for the vehicle. It's a 5-year term. It's at 2.8%. And you can even forego the first year. You can defer the first year if you want to. So if we're talking $34,000, and I know we poured $27,000 into one of the trucks, this is where it gets to the point that it's not good sense. It's just tough. And I know, everybody's got their hands full. You're trying to put a budget together and everything else and run the village. And you certainly don't anticipate, a telescoping ram that operates the dump to go. That by itself is several $1,000s just for the part. Acquiring parts and kind of bouncing around, but Mr. Whedon, your point. Cutting blades, the blade that goes on the bottom of our snowplows, we ordered 3 of them. $4,500 for 3 cutting blades. So all this stuff is, anyways, I digress.
Not even taking into account gas this year, what gas is gonna be.
Yeah. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, you're right.
I'm the wrong
I'm just
meeting.
an observer.
Madam Chair? So you mentioned, you touched on the leases and things like that. So has there been any significant work done as far as figuring out what we can get
I
a
have not
lease
been able to
and
make that
or make payments outside of the lease? You know, just a regular like you would. I know we're a municipality, but you can either make payments, get the loan from the bank, or lease. And generally, lease payments, now, a municipal truck might be completely different. And as you mentioned at our last meeting, a lot of municipalities now lease.
Yes.
Because this equipment is very pricey. You know, we're talking $250,000 every single year.
Right.
So this isn't pocket change. Generally, with automobiles in the private sector, leasing has lower payments. However, at the end of the lease, you either give it back or you buy it, and to buy it, it costs you a lot more to go out and buy something of it. So it doesn't pay you to purchase
It's
it
yours.
after the lease.
The muni leases are designed so that after 5 years, the vehicle is yours for $1.
Okay.
So you make five-year payments, and if you break it out to 2.8%, they're like, we're paying them almost $10,000 to carry it, is how it works
Yeah,
out.
for 5 years.
You know, so you carry it and we only pay $34,000 a year. They carry it for $10,000. We pay $1, the vehicle is ours, we get 7 more years out of it.
I would suggest we look at those numbers, get those numbers and look at them in earnest, so we can move on that as opposed to just, talking philosophically about it. We can have actual hard numbers in front of us. This is what it's going to cost us if we do this now.
If I may, I told you last week I would make that phone call, but I did not make it yet back to their financier. So it's all going to come down to credit, and I know that we did have a hard time getting credit from Motorola for police radios last year, which was where we're talking, what, 70,000 total. So I will get back to you as far as the feasibility of it, and then any leases we hold will then play in to our debt capacity when we go to do any refunding of notes.
Sure.
Because these obviously would be larger leases, especially if we have 2. So, but yeah, I will make that phone call this week to finance, if I can reach that gentleman from Valley Ford's finance department again, and let you know how it plays out. If not him, I'll try to see if there's someone else.
Thank you.
Rob, that's the dealership you've been dealing with, right? Just Valley?
I was going to forward you the information of the new,
You sent me the lease stuff. but-
that stuff that I just recently sent you, I believe that's a different company.
Okay.
That's dealing with the muni lease, it's not the same
Okay,
as
well, I'll
Valley.
definitely check with them, that they might be
Yeah.
easier to access. Okay. You got it.
Yeah, that's why I was hopeful they might be more responsible than the last person
Yeah.
we were dealing with.
Absolutely.
So with our debt capacity, Angela, I believe we were at like 1.5 million?
Your debt
Right now?
capacity is actually a percentage, and I'd have to go back and look at what our percentage is where we could have debt up to.
Right, and I believe the
So
numbers...
we are not at capacity
No.
yet.
Yeah, I believe our numbers were up to 10 million, but we don't want to get anywhere near there.
Correct.
We want to try to stay as low as possible, but I think
Right.
leasing the vehicles is definitely we should look into. And if we decide to go that way, fine, and if we don't, I think we need to really consider getting 2 trucks ordered this year, so that we have them by 2023.
You're talking about plow trucks?
We would just need also like if we order this year, what they might need down. Police, typically I'm dealing with pay and after, they're already built. I have to give a PO, but we obviously haven't budgeted for 2,
Those
so to give a
companies
PO.
might trust police more than they trust service.
Well, a different dealership too, but I'm just saying, like, we haven't budgeted for 2, so to open a PO for 2 is gonna be the issue if we can't lease, let's put it that way. because even though you wouldn't pay till next year, your PO's got to be open this year, so you're encumbering funds this year. So. We did have a comment, M-Pin check. We've had difficulties getting parts for transmissions and car repair. I can only imagine the delay in having a full truck built.
Yes, I can say factually, Avon Ford was closed last week, and they were only open yesterday, this week. They shut down again due to part
Yeah.
shortages.
Ford's been talking about going all electronic, like they're gonna focus on their electric vehicles. That they just made that statement last week.
Yeah. But they've got
It's
employees that were
easier.
laid off last week and now the rest of this week too, so. Just due to shortages. So, does anybody else have any other questions for Rob? Any residents?
Again, nothing else on here. Nothing else on here.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
Rob, thank you so much for coming, and I hope you heal well and quickly.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too.
I did not print my agenda for you. Sorry.
I've got the 2021 budget review then.
Do you want to start with, so Mr. Whedon had questions that he emailed, and as well as you. So do you want to start with the smaller stuff and get that stuff answered first? And then backtrack?
We could do that,
To your-
because we went
okay.
to other business, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, or we could. It's up to you. It's just since
That's
it all
fine.
plays together. All right, so you had asked today about debt schedule, which I'm going to hand out to everyone. In here is going to be debt schedule, some pieces from Star, from our investments, and then a piece from Dunham we'll get to. I do have to do the OPWC loans. I have to just,
Individual?
that's your whole
Oh,
packet.
that's my packet. I didn't know if I was passing it down.
Yeah, if you could pass them down,
There you
please.
go, Brian.
I do have to just get you guys, like, this sheet usually has the OPWC loans on it as well, so I just have to update those because the COVID year, we ended up getting to skip a payment, and so when I paid last July, I need to backtrack and see we were at 12/31, and then I just made a payment in January, so I can get that out too. And those, most of those are zero interest anyway, but, all right, so that answers your question, and I'll get the credit rating. I think that covered the couple things you had asked, Jennifer.
Okay.
So you, in front of you, you have the debt schedule for outstanding debt on our projects. As you know, we refunded money this year. Part of our old projects, we refunded $550,000 on the Dunham, and then we took $400,000 new for the 2022 road program. So, current debts, I know the event center is a big question. We have $445,000 outstanding on that. I paid $35,000 this year. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm echoing over here. Let's try that way.
Turn that one down.
It's a big
too
echo.
loud.
No, it's just like picking up some feedback over here. Obviously, the 2022 money's new for the road program, so that has a, you know, a $400,000 even balance. The note we had taken for Dunham Road construction was $2.6 million. And so, we did decide to leave some on the table, and we paid off $2,050,000 and kept $550,000 out on that. Other things we've got out are traffic signals and other, projects. So we've got Sagamore Road that's been on, Dunham Alexander intersection, and Alexander Northfield. So the Dunham Alexander intersection, that's $100,000 still outstanding. Sagamore Road on our side, $465,000, and Alexander Northfield, $180,000 still outstanding. Okay, we paid down a total this year of $2,155,000 on notes. And then we refunded with the new money, $2,140,000. Okay. So you can look at that, and if you have any other questions, let me know. Mr. Whedon had asked, he sent a little link about financials that used to be up, and those, that we used to do a bigger packet. When Vic was here, we put together just a couple other things in there. So, interest, earnings, and investment report. We don't have, what you have in front of you, that's it. Star Ohio is our investments. We used to have a money market account back when Vic did the reports. We liquidated that in either 17 or 18, not long after I got here. So I believe that was invested as well. Star Plus, through the state of Ohio, did their own configuration of investments, but this past May, what I gave you was, I think it was either 18, 19, 20, 21, end of year Star statements, and they threw a May in there because this past May, Star Ohio absorbed Star Plus. So now we literally have one CUSIP, that's what we have with Star Ohio. So it's a very modest fund. We get about $37 to $50 in interest every month. And so that particular sheet within that packet I can put it on there monthly, just so you see what's in there from Star, but we really don't have any other investment activity like we used to. Income tax analysis, we can certainly go back to doing that. You see on the 52, the change month to month in what we've received, but that was basically a nice little breakout just to show each month what came in for us, broken out by withholding net profit, individual tax, and then also like the JED portion. So that page of that report, we could do that. The 9903 fund analysis was basically just a little breakdown of what we would call, they're fiduciary funds. They're not really true fiduciary funds, but they are for us, which would be our benevolent fund. We had an animal fund, and then we obviously collect for lawn care, senior snowplow. So those things were on there. There was a UH health screening. We can continue to do that just to show what's going in and out. Like the benevolent funds, obviously, and then the lawn care and the plowing are the most active. So basically, we're like a little holding tank. We take the payments in for lawn care and plowing from the residents, but then we pay back out to Sharpscapes. So we're kind of just, the fiduciary on that one. So we could do it. There's not a ton of activity, other than plowing and animal fund. Obviously, right now, we've got nothing going on because we don't have a service animal. And then Hinkles I do have for all of you, but I will make copies. Those are 24-page reports. So I can get you copies of those. And I believe, I'll see if you guys are able to, you should be able to access them on the Auditor of State website once they're up and posted. We did have to redo 19. The auditor needed it redone when the fiscal officer did 19. They did a strict copy paste on the notes section from 18. And they wrote it out for a little while, waiting to see if it was going to need to be redone, and it does. So when I pull the trigger today or tomorrow on 2021s, the 19 updated will also go over. It needs to be at the same time because they had to open back up for me. But I have a copy of what it is, so you can certainly have that. And I think, other than like job description stuff, we'll have to look for all of that. But is there, you can start to think and mull it over if there's anything else in particular you'd like in a packet each month.
Yes, Chairwoman Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Reve. Yeah, the one report, actually, the one report I forgot to request was, I think was the one that would help us the most, and that was the capital fund report. That was,
okay, let me see.
that was
I didn't know
in
it
that
was
packet, that 2017 packet that I used as an example. That one was.
Your
the
capital projects breakdown,
capital
basically,
project
okay.
breakdown. Right.
Yeah, I'll go back and see what Vic had
Yeah,
said.
those were all easy to read snapshot reports, and for me anyway, it's much easier
Sure.
to see those types of details versus on the report 52. I just personally struggle with that.
And we did have a lot of, well, the 52 is obviously the big crux of that packet. That's
Yeah.
the whole beginning of that packet, okay?
Yeah.
So that's your most comprehensive line by line. Since we had a lot more invested before, the interest and earnings investment report was also pretty important. It's gonna look a little more mundane if we put one together now, but we can do it. It's just that one account. That's all we've got for investments.
And as far as the Hinkle reports go, you said that 2019 had to be redone, and
Yeah, it just had to be updated so that the notes could be like actual notes for that year. Because a lot of our notes in a Hinkle system is basic stuff that talks about our entity and how we do our accounting. And that stays the same every year. And then we have to go in and add notes for events, like when we refund a note each year, copy paste had been done. And so that needed to be redone. This, like, we're finishing up this last audit finally. That's, a couple years behind schedule here, a year and a half behind schedule with them getting it done. But they were waiting on me to upload that, and then they can come in and, we can have our executive session and go through our audit report for the 18-19 year.
All right,
Because it's time for them to come
We're
out.
in our audit year.
We're in our audit year now. They'll be coming back again.
and
Absolutely.
then the 20, that's already.
2021 they will do. We do 2-year periods at a time. So they're wrapping up that 18-19. If you remember, they were behind on the
They're so
16-17.
far behind, it's terrible.
They are, and we waited on them for a while, and then now they've just been waiting because that 19 wouldn't go over until this one goes over with it. So we have to ask the Auditor of State to open up the file again.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. And so
Every 2 years we get.
that's a little snapshot as well of all our little financials. It'll have like the OPWC loans on it, this debt schedule's in there, just regular financials are in there, as well as notes to things that have happened. Because the auditors follow, so like they're finishing up that old audit, but right now they've had to keep adding notes in to the 19 one that they'll say 2021 we took this money, or 2020 we took this money for Dunham. So even though that's out of the audit period, it's a subsequent event, and that will be captured in those updated 2019 notes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think of anything else related to those items, let me know. All right, so it's up to you, Madam Chair. Do you want to do a line by line? We can certainly do a line by line. I have like your general picture, as I explained, because some of these people weren't at our last meeting, COW, when I had explained, or regular council, whichever one I did. When I budgeted last year, in budgeting each year on the expense side, should be the full amount of whatever note we took in totality. So this year we took new money and refunded, that comes up as one total. In the expense line, it has to reflect that whole total. We pay our notes, our short term, they get paid off every year. So what I did in error in budgeting, and none of us caught until the end of the year when I looked at it, is I only put in the net amount for what would be paid back instead of the entire amount, the net of what we would get once we paid and refunded, okay? So in doing December, I was like, looking for like, okay, we've got a deficit. But then once I looked, it totally makes sense. Because in your back of your, what I just gave you guys, you have a Dunham Road, very simple project breakdown. We got money for Dunham in 2020, so then that money stays in 2020, right? You can't put that revenue on your other budget again because you've already gotten it. So you use that money to do your budget. You're budgeting with borrowed money. So our 2021 budgeted expenses for the project were $2,786,859. Had I put in, just for this project alone, 2.6 million, okay, that wouldn't be the total in that column because I got the refund part too as well, but that would be in addition to the other part of the expenses. What we budget for revenue that we knew we would receive from the county and from Maple Heights was $2,853,707. So right there, that leaves you with an ending balance in the red of $2,533,152. So because of the way the project was running and because of getting financing in one year and project in another, we should have been running a deficit. And then that's like a one-time thing, like this happens periodically when any city runs a big project. And none of us caught it, because you're trusting my budget. My first budget I did, so I had to apologize. I own it, exactly. Nothing's changed with our cash position. We are still having the same ending fund balance, okay, of like 3.4 million. We do typically end in right around that range every year. So nothing's changed with cash, nothing's missing. It was a fat finger error of not putting in and then not catching later, doing that budget number on the expense side. We ended up actually with, as we go through this, you will see, the deficit is actually only 1.139, okay? So now that doesn't mean anything for this year because every time you budget, you start a year all over again. So, you know what I'm saying? We start from scratch. What we budgeted, and I double checked my numbers for this year, the correct numbers in there, for what we passed in October, November, whenever we passed budget. So we can go through line by line certainly, but I thought give you I know some of you got the explanation already, but just because everyone wasn't here when we did
Madam
this.
Chair,
Yes.
to break this down further, and I wish we could make our report somehow, I know we have to report January 1 to December 31st.
Yes, it would be helpful to capture.
But if we can capture a fiscal year
Absolutely.
for big budget, because, for example, 2020, we showed a surplus, profit surplus
Which had
of
on it.
$2,642,000, okay?
Right.
So if you combine these 2 years with the deficit of, with your correct number that you should have had, it doesn't have the shock effect because you don't see a one-year budget deficit of $1.2 million.
Correct, it's all in timing.
You have to take the 2 years together, because we certainly didn't. I would love to make have a surplus every year of $2.6 million, but
That would be fantastic.
That was solely due to the project.
We wouldn't have truck problems, Madam Chair.
Exactly.
The project and the timing of when we do our notes.
Yeah.
Stretching out our equipment. if
Exactly.
we
So,
had that.
you know, big projects like this that we know are going to take us through more than 1 year, we need to figure out how to report that to give everybody, us and the residents, the big picture of what the finances look like for the village, because somebody, you know, saying, we lost $1.2 million last
lose
year. Well, no,
all
we didn't. It's,
I feel like I'm on a school board, because this always happens on school boards, but.
My concern also, which was Mr. Councilman Whedon's concern, is that, yes, we did not see that error. And we need to see, we need to figure out, we need to make this a learning episode and see how we can report better. So these types of things, you know, are caught, and everybody, you know, it rests on our shoulders, not yours. You made
Well,
the
yours-
initial
mine too.
mistake, but it rests on our shoulders. And with all the reports here, I didn't, you know, I'm looking at the numbers, but I did not, there was no way for me to know that that number was a wrong number in there.
Correct.
As opposed to getting another form, another report saying, here's the entire breakdown of the project, and here's the entire breakdown of the funds that we're using for that project, and this is how it's going to be paid off in a completely separate report. So when something like that does happen, we can say, no, that doesn't match, you know, so we have to figure that out.
So we will definitely go forward, because even with regular road programs, you know, we had Specialized Construction come out in the fall to do our road program for '21. Well, we don't get reimbursement from the county or whoever's going to reimburse us till this year. So there is always a timing factor. One important thing we can look at going forward as we work on that 5-year road program, if we're going to refund anything, I know we don't really want to take new money, but if we're going to refund, the timing of the note, I mean, we can always, it's a more added expense, obviously, to go back a second time, right? So we already are bound into what's on that debt schedule for some of that, and that happens in November every year. It's got to be paid off. Even if we didn't refund it, well, then we're going to be out a ton of cash because we got to pay it then, because that's the cycle we're on. But you could go back and pay a little more in the behind-the-scenes cost of doing a note. You know, say it's, you know, May, and we find out, oh my gosh, we got a project, we're getting some money again from the county, we got to get this done, and it's going to be done by the end of the year. So then you would fund in the same year that you're, but with road projects, correct, we'll have to start going through with capital. Joe's fantastic. We go through things, you know, all the time for all of it. And of course, the bulk of the payments, the big payments came at the end of the year for the project. So, and we do still have one more to pay this year. Real quick, so I don't forget, Steve Velk on the chat commented, what did the Dunham Road project actually cost the village if not the anticipated 706? So I'll type it in here and I'll say it. So we were budgeted at about 706 or 704, and then we were fortunate enough to come in at $544,640.75. So we did save a little bit on that, absolutely.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
project-
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know with what I do, we require 3 years' worth of year-end financial statements. And there are all different kinds of preparations of different ways of doing financial statements. And since it's all construction, it's on a percentage of completion, and they have a work on hand, because you don't
Yep.
start a job in March and say, well, I gotta have it done by December. How the money is going from one year to another, so you get that shock factor when you see the deficit. But as you said, technically made money the prior year. You don't get the good flow, and it's just the way does their finances, you know, and it's just looking at a bigger picture, looking at maybe a different report, something like that, but it gets you, especially when you're doing jobs, when you're doing construction, it's just a whole different animal. So when you see 3 years' worth, you see, is this a trend that we're losing money? You know, you get a better idea. So this, for what it's worth, I try not to take any one thing as definitive, because you know there's so much more going on behind the scenes.
What's hard too is budgets in other organizations, you're definitely taking, you're working really hard on bank balances, right? So in government, you're definitely not, like, you have a bank balance, you want to make sure your bank balance is, hefty, but your bank balance doesn't necessarily 100% match your fund balance, doesn't, it all doesn't like just tie out, right, like your own checkbook does. And even other organizations that I've run budgets for, we're literally taking what's in the checkbook as a starting balance, and so every year it flows like that, but that's not how government works. We basically have a budget this year, and then now that's done and over with, and we start over again. So with what we anticipate to get in revenues and, and what we certify to the county for what we anticipate to be revenues for the year. So, yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
That's probably one of the hardest things for our department heads to understand.
Correct.
Is how the budget starts over.
Especially because department heads don't understand that, like, yes, if I'm in building, let's say, I do make X amount of money in permits and fees and this each year, but it doesn't automatically just transfer back over to building again next year. The general fund is the general fund, and everybody's married in the general fund. So at the end of the year, it is, what did building go over on or stay under on? How do we mesh it all and zero it all out now? How do we make sure that if this was over, this covers it now because that didn't go over? So, you obviously can't intermingle funds in the other funds, but with the general fund, it's kind of like everybody's pot, even though we break it out. So it's not that we, which is why when we budget, we say, all right, we're still going to give you this much. We're not going to take any away. Do you need any extra so we can make sure we add it in? But it's not just as simple as, here's my piggy bank and here's what I made this year, so this is what I should have next year. Because it all comes down to, it's the whole village in the general fund. So, yeah, that is hard to understand.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know when Angela first brought this to us with, in the COW meeting and the council meeting, and we talked about it in quite a few meetings. And Brian, you're exactly right. I know one of the comments you talked about was this being the largest project this village has ever done, we really didn't have a good spreadsheet or a sheet for that.
And I will still get you
that. That is
that.
something we need to do better.
I will get to a spreadsheet of all the payments that were requested from Joe, the time they went out, when I billed Maple, when Maple paid, do you know what I'm saying? Because we have that, everything comes on a payment recommendation from Joe whenever we do any project. And everybody holds back retainage, obviously, especially on a project this large. So, we may be paying $108,000 on invoice number 1, then we've got a change order and we're paying, $250,000, but then Maple's really paying that back because that's on their side. So I will get that all mapped out for you. That was going to take a little bit more time. And then also, I didn't see my email back from Joe. Jennifer had asked about, like, I told you guys before, Joe made a comprehensive packet of everything related in terms of what we had to turn into the county for the project, meaning invoices from CVE, anything incidental that was in there, engineering costs, all of it. I didn't want to copy all of that, but Jennifer had asked Joe about it, and so Joe did email me back, and I think it got sucked up by the spam filter. That's really, like, too good to be true. So I was going to forward it to all of you, so you'd have it electronically at least. So if I can't find it in there again, Joe will send it over again to me electronically, because I only had a hard copy at first. He had not sent it electronically, but you do have an electronic copy now, right?
No, he did not respond to me.
Okay, see, then let me let him know. He thought he did. He told me the other day, I responded and I copied you, and I said, well, I didn't get it.
No.
Perfect, thank you. I thought for sure the Viper filter sucked it up, so, because it is.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get it to you guys then.
I know companies, when they have big projects going on, in their reporting, they will report a profit or a loss, and then they will report net special items.
Okay.
So that might be something we might want to look into as far as reporting to our residents and us, but our residents, to give our residents an idea, had the Dunham Road project not existed,
Oh, sure.
what would that's the special item, what would our finances look like?
Right.
And that gives people a better idea of, not including that big thing, are we going in the positive or are we going in the negative? And this is a special item here that we're accounting for.
And we did have those extra line items at the end of 2021.
Yeah, I let you know that 2/6 of that you know, we were looking good, but we weren't really
Or, I'm
looking as
sorry,
good as
rather,
we
yeah, the end of
Yeah.
2020.
Yes, exactly,
You know,
to
we had
notate it. Mhm.
Those,
Yeah,
Madam Chair? And that's a good example, that what you said, but also that it plays into what Rob just said. Now we're purchasing a truck, it's the same thing, but on a lot smaller scale.
Exactly.
You know, we're budgeting for it this year, we probably won't receive it. That always throws in,
which, yeah, we'll definitely have to address. We talked about the fact that we have until, I believe, the end of 2024 to spend our ARPA funds.
Yep.
So hopefully those trucks, if they can come in 23, that won't be an issue. But it's just a matter of, yes, now making sure that we also earmark again next year, because we had put in for one for this year. So, yeah, I mean, and if we lease, then it'll be a little bit different story, because we can go ahead and just absorb, you know, part of that cost, because I'm sure if we lease, they're gonna at least want a third of that now, potentially, or, you know, some of it now. Yeah,
well, the lease payment will be out of this world.
yeah.
Rob said you could forego the first year's lease.
Sometimes
payment.
you can, yeah, sometimes you can. I don't know that that's always the case. Because
if
nobody's
that
gonna hand you a
happens-
truck without something down, right? I mean, we couldn't even get our police radios without a third of the payment, so. So I can't see them giving us a dump without something down, and then you would forego. Just, yeah, that happens
But
at the
we'll
car.
find that out.
Yeah, that's happened at the car dealership before too. You go put something down and then they let you skip that first payment. Absolutely. I
Well,
will
and
keep-
then the other important part of that would be the delivery time of that vehicle, because if that's going to be,
Yeah, that's
then we would
what's,
need to consider, are we going to do two at one time?
this is what's hard, because I agree with Rob that if we can lease, yeah, absolutely do two. But now while we're waiting for those two, what if we still end up with another 30,000 going into the trucks next year that we have, that we're stuck relying on? Like, I mean, it could happen. If it happens, it happens. It's like we're kind of, our hands are tied. But that's the caveat. And then this year, if we want to go through this line by line, I'm totally down for that. The biggest thing this year that was a hit to us, and I'm not even going to say it's like an exorbitant hit, but a big enough hit in every single department, as Rob was saying with police too, the vehicle repairs. And even to 2020 vehicles, even to like brand new vehicles, I think, a 2020, because it was something we picked up at the end of 2020 that was down for all that time. Obviously, Rec's using older vehicles. So, you know, they're gonna have more repairs in general, because they get the hand-me-downs. You know, they've got the regular things they use for transport, but the regular cars are usually a hand-me-down from police. But yeah, really just all of the expense for repairs of vehicles, that chipper went down, you know, like everything blowing up and catching on fire, and whatever could happen this year, of course, happened. So, yeah, that definitely was a little bit of a hit, but yeah, if it's up to you if you want to.
Yeah, if we could go through,
Yeah, do you want to go
We
through
don't have to-
revenue as well, or just expense side?
well, if we can highlight where our revenue,
Yeah.
you know, big increases or deficits.
Yeah, so I've
first
got
of
some
all.
highlights in here, even though you've got black and white. Again, I've mentioned this before, and I thought I think I had a percentage for you at one point, but I don't have it in front of me. It's probably gonna be, I'm gonna say about 1.6%.
Excuse me, Angela, are you going?
I'm sorry, I'm holding on to them.
Okay.
I'm holding them hostage. Well, that, pretty
Oh,
much
yeah.
that one, but I updated it.
Okay.
It's ever so
Okay,
slight
I was
updates, but
wondering,
here.
That's all.
I forgot I'm sitting on them, I'm sorry.
I had the same.
Okay.
You wouldn't be totally amiss
I
if you
was
followed
looking
that
at
one,
it.
because not much has changed. I just had to make, adjustments at the end of the year for medical payments from employees coming in and things like that. Sorry.
His
Okay.
rate is special.
Right, it's
Special.
Special one.
The font you can't read.
Did he get one? Oh, okay,
And
sorry.
Angela, this is the
She
closed
has
out
increased
one?
the font size.
This is the one that will be closed out the minute I pull the trigger,
Okay,
yes.
everything is
Yes,
configured.
everything is
settled in here.
configured and settled, and all the end of year entries, like I said, to credit back for healthcare and things like that are on there. So it shouldn't have changed too drastically. I did have to do a couple internal adjustments. All right, so starting with page 1 of the revenues, where you'll see at the top municipal income tax and then electric tax. I did mention in other meetings, I was pleasantly surprised the pandemic did not affect us for this year. And we came in over budget for just about everything. Net profit was down about 5,000 from what we budgeted, but honestly, you can't, yeah, that's great for net profit even, because a lot of people file extensions and we're waiting until October to get some money. So that is usually a line that's down. But we budgeted 295 for withholding and ended up with a little over 3 million. So that was great. I will add to that I got really excited a couple weeks ago, probably preemptively, and was telling my fellow tax association buddies that I'm getting lots of calls from people working from home in Walton Hills now. So we had, the House bill that passed to say that if you are strictly working from home, now your taxes will go to your home city instead of where your work location physical building was. So I was getting excited because I got more people calling, and I had a few last year as well. But then I did also start to get a couple inquiries about refunds too for other people. So we got a whole system with the tax association because basically, obviously, unless you're in Sagamore, which is a township, and it's not charging you any kind of income tax, you still owe your home city. So if you used to work in Westlake and now you're going to go ahead and they're going to need to withhold for Walton Hills. So if you did ask your employer in Westlake for a refund from last year, their tax person or Rita, whoever they're using, should contact us to say, hey, Joe Smith asked for a refund. Make sure that, you're getting paid too. I just went ahead and took Keith from Bedford's form because he gave it to all of us anyway. So basically what has to happen is that just like when we have truck drivers that are on the road, the employer has to certify that yes, that employee did work from home or is going to be mostly, exclusively working from home now. And did in that year that they want the refund. And then I'm also asking ahead of time for their return for their home city so that I can see that they paid their home city or that they are going to be paying their home city. So I don't anticipate we're going to get a ton of them, but we have had a couple people inquiring. So the form's up online for them, and knock on wood, hopefully we don't get too many big earners asking for that refund, let's put it that way. Because then cities like Lakewood and Independence are going to take a huge hit from something like this because they're mostly service oriented. Most of our people were in the buildings here manufacturing, and like I said, if anything, I'm getting lucky and people are working at home here in Walton Hills, so we're getting more, but hopefully it'll be an offset. All right. Sorry, I digress. So local government distribution, that's gone down significantly, and part of the reason that goes down is because of our camera revenue. We have to do a report each year based on how much revenue we get from cameras. We've never banked on that because, as you see in 19, we never got probably more than $35,000 in that local government fund. We get a portion from the state and a portion from the county. So the county portion is where we're really seeing like zero. We've had a few months this year where we got zero just because we've taken in so much for the cameras. Highlighting some other things. Let's see. I'm just looking at my property tax stuff. Property tax stuff, I had that highlighted just because I have a portion of it in another, it hit another line. So where you see special assessments, and so the 231 and the 389, those coincide with that 585 we budgeted. It's just that when they sent it over, it got booked into the other account, based on where they allocated it. Let's see, next thing to highlight, we obviously had a great year with Parker's last year. We had increased the number of entrants that we were allowing, so that was up a little bit. Nothing was really down significantly. We were up overall in revenue. So if you want to move down to $1,590 for banquet hall rental, we budgeted $30,000. We had $37,806. After that, court costs were up, thankfully. The previous year, we were taking a hit, obviously, from courts being closed and or canceled for COVID. So we budgeted $65,000 and came in at a little over $70,000.
Angela, where was that banquet hall line?
Banquet hall line is $1,590, $3,100. And that would be banquet hall and multi-purpose room, all combined in that one.
How come I don't see that?
You're
It's
on the front,
highlighted.
first page.
It should be highlighted, Jennifer.
Are you on?
Yeah, no, I'm on the first page. Oh, 3,100, there, okay.
There you go. Got it?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right, so also going along with court, the fines have come up significantly. So we budgeted $100,000, we got $112,000. Traffic cameras, even though you will still hear me say we cannot over budget for these, they can be yanked at any time. I budgeted a little more this year, and I budgeted $300,000, and we ended at $499,000. So for page 1, that's really the most significant stuff. If we go to page 2, we're going to go down to the SCMR fund.
Excuse me, Angela?
Yes.
Before you go to page 2, could you explain the municipal income tax, electric tax, that blank?
Yeah, so our utilities, we've got utilities here in the district, or in the village, I should say. Every so often, we do get money from them. I got to dig into the rhyme or reason though, because some years we get hardly nothing, anything, and some years we do get, and so we didn't get anything this year. If I go back before 19, we're probably going to have gotten maybe like 7,500. Then we got a big amount in 19. 20, we only got 3,200, and so I tried to budget modest, but we didn't get anything from them this year.
So there's no set schedule?
I have to find out what the schedule would be, or if maybe something happened and the ball got dropped and we are owed a little bit this year. That could be too, but it's basically for the fact that there's utilities that run through the village. So all your, from your easements and stuff like that. So yeah, I will look into that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to make a point to the residents and any residents that are watching. This isn't the first time we went through this report. Of course, before we had to do our budget for 2022, we went line item. We spent probably 2 months in 2021 before we passed the budget before the end of the year. The only thing that was different is 2021 wasn't totally closed out at that time. Right. So there was
Right.
some assumptions that needed to be made, and Angela put that in. But just so you know, we're not going through the 2021
Oh,
budget.
right,
here.
absolutely.
Just to let people know, we extensively went through line by line in 2021, of course, to set our 2022 budget, which we did pass in 2021 before the end of the year,
Yep.
which is good.
All right, page 2 if we're ready. SCMR fund. Gasoline tax was up this year also because people were back on the road last year. It wasn't terrible, but COVID, had it shut down for a while in 2020. So you could see the effects of the shutdown on gasoline tax, license registration, traffic cameras, things like that. And so when you see that, it comes into, so we got county and we got state on the gasoline tax and the license taxes. So those came in a little higher than expected, so that's nice. Same thing under state highway. State highway portion is like 7.5% of the total amount that comes in, and the remainder is that larger amount above it. Any questions on page 2 before we go on to page 3? I'm gonna just hit highlights for all of you. Like I said, nothing came in significantly under budget, so extraordinary items on page 3, you'll see the 118,000. I have it under what's called CARES Act because that is where I created that special revenue fund last year. It'll also be known as ARPA funds because these funds are a little bit different than when we got money to spend on COVID-related things. 118,840.08. We will get the second half of that in 2022, and it would be no less than 12 months from when we got that one, and I want to say that one came in October. We also just got, I got all excited, and really not for much, but we just got a redistribution email, the mayor and I, meaning there were some non-entitled units, as we're called. Basically, we're not a big city and we're not a county, so we're called a non-entitled unit because we're small. There were other non-entitled units that did not claim their money, so they decided to put it all together and re-divvy it up to all of us smaller people. And I was like, oh, come on, jackpot. It was $447. So we'll get an additional $447, which is, free money's free money, but at the same time, I got all excited and I was like,
We'll take it.
yeah, we'll take it. So I don't know when that piece of the distribution will come. And then I do have some reporting that I will need to go in and do just to let them know throughout the process and the couple of years that we have to spend the money, we have reporting we have to do on what we've spent the money on.
Exactly, there's guidelines on that.
On this page also then, I just highlighted the note because we budgeted to take $1,145,000, but obviously we decided to go ahead and leave a little bit outstanding on the Dunham note, and then we also took the new $400,000 for the road program. Sewer improvements highlighted basically because I think I still need to move that. We've made some sewer repairs and we did get money from the county, so that wouldn't be something we would have budgeted to receive anything for. And that Veterans Memorial, that's actually Maple money. I do, before I pull the trigger on an official close, I just need to move that. So you'll see that money in line 4902,892, you'll end up seeing it reflected up in the capital. I still don't remember how it got in that one,
Talking
but.
about that 80,000?
Yeah, that 80,000, that was Maple Heights money. It should be up it should be up with the Dunham stuff. And I thought I moved it 3 times already. Okay, so I'll make it a note to move that. And then, if we're done on that page, any questions on page 3? Page 4 will just be the JED. So I thought the JED was going to come in slightly under, but actually we did great. And I do need to speak to Tom Jordan because we have one player as far as companies in the JED that I really had nothing from at all this year. And so I'm wondering if they just moved headquarters or, moved their location and they're not part of the JED anymore. But we still came in ahead of schedule, $45,000. So that was nice. And we had our JED meeting in December. We have one meeting every year with Sagamore and the trustees there, as well as with our economic development director. So that meeting took place in December.
And of course, the hospital.
Yes, the hospital also does have a representative invited each year, and they sit on the board as well. All right, so are we ready for expense lines? I'm gonna hit highlights again, but if you see something that pops out, just stop me. All right, page 1. We did go over on dispatch overtime, which we've talked about in the past. Dispatch supervisor was out sick for a period of time. We had a couple people quit in the midst, or leave to go take other jobs, I should say, in the midst of that. And so we did need to incur some overtime. Likewise, once Shannon was back, then other people were out for things. So, it was kind of like unavoidable at the time. So I mean, we did have talks about that. And the dispatch, just to remind everybody, they went kind of on a little MOU just like the police did now, to where they are on 12s. And so those 12-hour shifts, we also incorporated into the dispatch contract with Oakwood so that they would be okay with that and how we are staffing. And this way, it mitigates the overtime issue. So, so that did help because they agreed to sign off on that same thing that the police had a couple years ago.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
also that due to COVID too, we had seen
Oh, yes,
overtime because
this
we
year
would
we
have
had people out,
and
yes.
So we would have who was healthy cover their shifts,
Yep, absolutely.
and so they were putting in overtime.
Yep.
And that's what that COVID money
Health slip,
helps.
yes.
Sure, absolutely.
So likewise, when you scroll down a little bit farther, you'll see the OPERS dispatch amount, obviously also a little bit over, based on having overtime in there. After that, workers' comp was over a little bit too, and that could also just, workers' comp is a little temperamental, so we've gotten refunds from them as well. So, so yeah, they're a little tricky to budget to each year because sometimes they're barely charging anything. So 2,000, we were at 2,700, we were over for that. Uniforms and clothing looks to be that we're over, but at the same time, we don't, like brand new officers don't get their own budget line for uniform until they've been here a year. So we did have to outfit Kyle Boone.
Teresa.
Yep, Teresa will now get outfitted this year. And we still had probably some things that we needed to, I think we were also replacing some things. Just like on the belts that are holding the weapons and things like that, so.
Angela, is that just the police department?
That one is police, I believe, because dispatch has their own, I believe. So yes, that one should just be police. Training and services, obviously, we've gone over as well on that. So we budgeted 5,000, which is a tough budget to stick with for police. We've obviously saved a ton of money by doing a lot of training at the event center. And so then we get to send some officers for free because we're hosting the training. But there are certain things that need to be done every few years. And for example, a couple $1,000s a pop, Sergeant Walsh just had to go get trained on some specialty items. And so she was down in Columbus at 2 different occasions for that training. So that went over at 17,900. And we did give them a little bit bigger budget this year for that. Their professional and technical services went over a bit. Again, we had to have police radios programmed, some other incidentals that come up, like new firewalls being needed and things like that. And then I didn't budget anything for their machinery, equipment, and furniture, but they did have to grab a couple peripherals for computers and such. Same thing, operating supplies, so that's the line item that we'll call Sergeant Gervaisi's line. Other things come out of it as well, but that is where we do like supplies and ammunition, right? So when we find ammunition cheap, we gotta jump on it. And so that line did go over just a little bit as well because we probably did make a few purchases of extra things because it was the time to make a move on it. So, and I think we did give them a bigger budget this year for that.
And
All
they go-
right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just, they go through that ammunition, just as you know,
Sure,
to
'cause they're-
qualify.
To qualify.
You know, so they have to do it. It's,
Yep.
people wonder why you spend that much on, I mean, it's required, they qualify so often.
And it's hundreds of rounds that they expect.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that,
Exactly.
but also Sergeant Gervaisi's very
He's a good shopper.
adept and, yeah, very good at shopping. I know that he has bought some stuff in excess when the price was
Yes.
favorable to do
We can
that.
stock it. Yep, you got it. Down below then, just some of what we were talking about, repair of and maintenance of motor vehicles and machinery and equipment. So not too terrible for them in that given year. Now, we did also purchase a car last year, but that invoice, you'll see later on. You'll see that's later on in a different line item. But this was just of vehicles we have currently. And again, some were newer vehicles. Any questions on page 1 before we move on to page 2?
Well, it's just disappointing that almost, well, over $19,000 in repairs and 2 of them were newer vehicles.
Absolutely. And one of those might not even be included in that because they didn't have the part yet, so it might still be sitting. All right, page 2, we're just looking at transportation salary, just up about $1,100, which, you know, that our residents are using us. That's a good thing. That's not a terrible thing. We've got Mark driving, and Mark splits his time, and so we do split his wage between working down at the rec department doing transportation and doing auxiliary. Let's see, what else over here? Operating supplies and materials in the rec department. Yeah, they need to get a new printer technically, because they do go through a lot of printer ink. And I can look through there and see what the heck else was going on, but probably a lot of it was for camp last year, and, you know, it just depends. With everybody being, Maya working when Natalie wasn't there, then Natalie there, you know, maybe they were not keeping as close of track there. And then also, if you look at land and buildings, we did put up that fence down there. We put up, you know, that privacy fence. Flagpole would be in this line, even though the Women's Club donated, it would still come out of this line first, and then you would see that donation on the revenue side. So, you know, just mulch, just anything we need to do to keep up the grounds and beautify down there, and also probably some AC repairs, because we've had them in every building this year, HVAC repairs. And then their motor vehicles, they were over about $1,100 on their motor vehicle repairs. Any questions on page 2?
No, the only thing I do want to say, Angela, is even though that land and buildings repairs is up about $10,000, that fence, I believe,
It
was
was
only,
about 4.
it was only about $4,000.
Yeah, the fence was
and
about
it was
4.
installed completely in-house.
Yep, absolutely. We did have a window we had to replace that got cracked, that was cracked. We had to do locks a couple different times, like, so just various things down there. I mean, like I said, most of it too comes up with, you know, mulch and grass seed and things like that. All right, biggies that were like out there this year. On page 3, electricity, and I just got another giant bill. So we do have someone that goes out to contract for us for like a period of 2 years on our utilities. And I do have to touch base with her because I had to approve an ACH today that seemed like a bigger bill than usual, but it could have been a double. But we were over, so we had about $11,000 more in electricity expenses alone. Now we were under in gas, and under in water and sewage. And then, as you could imagine, trash. We budgeted $165,000 based on kind of the previous year where we landed. We were up to $177,000. So, and this is the year to redo the trash contract. The consortium's working on that. So I don't know what prices will look like, but that was unfortunate to go over. Telephone was another place we went over by about $6,000. So I'll be taking a look at what lines do we have, because I went to cancel things a couple times that I didn't think we needed at the service garage, and I'm like, it's a fax line, oh, okay, but no, it's tied to an alarm. So gotta just go through and look at everything with the telephones as well, and just see if there's anything we can pare down on the telephone stuff.
And Angela, again, the utilities are for all the municipal buildings.
Correct, for
in
every
the
building.
village.
This is every building. You got it. That is all encompassing. All right, so down to service department, uniforms and clothing. They were also over just a little bit, and I'm Trying to think why they were even over. I feel like there was something specific to a project. Normally, they've got a $250 per person boot allowance each year, and they're not normally over on that. Oh, actually, now that I'm looking at this will tell me. This was Cintas. This is a Cintas line. So when we have their stuff laundered, Cintas will sometimes charge us for not returning things when they're in fact returned. So that could also be a little bit of a timing issue. Rob does double check those invoices, but every so often they throw a big one on. Down into the next section of service, operating supplies and materials, over on that line, but we were probably under in the 2011 620 line, if I had to guess. So that probably would even itself out. I'm not sure why I highlighted that machinery and equipment, because that's not over, sorry. And then sanitary sewers, this is just, money we're spending to do some maintaining of the sanitary sewers. So that did go over by about $5,000 this year. Council dues and fees, we just need to budget a little bit more. We have organizations that we're all a part of as council, as clerk of courts, as mayor, as the city in general, you know, so we did go just a little bit over on that. Magistrates, this was due to the beginning of the year courts for traffic cameras still being online at Garfield. We had Janice St. John doing those, and they were running like sometimes more than one in a week. And we had just gotten to the point where we were going to work out a rate for Janice to, instead of paying her like we normally do, and then they stopped doing them. So that's why that's a little bit over, because we were still paying Janice the same amount as if she were in regular court. Mayor's clerk salary. I'm not sure why hers is up, unless we didn't account for her raise. I'll have to look at why hers is up. Really, she doesn't have any overtime, so that really shouldn't be up. And then the OPRs would go along with it, but let me double check on that. Hospitalization just up slightly, that's our increases each year, but we've not been charging the employees the past couple of years. Any increase we've just kind of incurred. And then the other Protect services there, I believe there was a new monitor needed, new laptop, something like that this year for that. All right, any questions on that page before we go to 4? All right, auditor state fees. So we're still paying audit fees because, again, we were still wrapping up that audit, that 18-19 audit, and so we didn't budget anything in the 2021 year because it's technically not an audit year. But we still had outstanding things that were going to come through as they finished up. And the auditors are usually given a budget per project. So if they say, hey, you're going to Walton Hills, it's a 2-year audit, here's your budget for this part, here's your budget for the JED, because they audit separately, and for the CIC, you know, try to stick to it. And for the most part, they typically do. But, you know, there's just been extra things that they had going on. So, and I'm sure it was the same for the last one, because that audit took a while. And that's down to the bottom there under administrative and finance, our 790 accounts. Insurance and bonding, we know we had that conversation during the meeting before paying that was going up. And then dues and fees, just slightly over on that one for us. Same thing with operating supplies, not much over. Any questions on that page? Okay, ignore the figure on page 5. That's just a note for me when you get to the top under capitals and transfers. SCMR fund on here, which is going to be the 2011 620. When we get to repair and maintenance of buildings and lands, again, went over, obviously we've had projects we had to do for, you know, we've got to replace mailboxes sometimes when we're knocking those down. We've got some other things we need to do if we're doing some water main repairs. And so that falls in there. And then a lot of that does end up in the revenue side getting reimbursed from the sewer department or the city of Cleveland Water or whoever is part of those projects. Repair and maintenance of motor vehicles, 23,000 over. And that's just us keeping things going. Any questions on that page?
No, Angela, but I do want to just make note that there are many items that we're not hitting where we were under budget.
Oh, yes, I'm going over everything that was over budget.
Yes.
That's what I'm
So I
highlighting.
just,
In the
you know,
revenue was what was over, and I'm highlighting here everything
Yeah, I
else
just want to
on
say,
here.
you know, like, under contractual services and administrative, we were budgeting 10,000 and we were hit 2,400.
Right.
So there's some places where we are really
And there were places
under.
where we went over very minimally. If it was under about $500, I didn't bother highlighting it for you. So I was trying to highlight substantial stuff. Okay, if we're okay with that page, let's move on to page 6. and we're going down to special bond retirement. So you're gonna see a little bit, well, obviously in this line where you see that budget number, that's the incorrect budget number, right? So that was what we had netted out, what I had net that we would have, gotten back. Now, you'll also see in the actual line that changed ever so slightly. And the reason that changed, we also had a change on the revenue side. Internally, you can't do an interfund transfer. Like if you look at this, that main page, I give you the fund balance page each time with this. You don't want anything to be really negative at the end of the year. And so we had money sitting in the special bond retirement fund that needed to be moved to the capital fund where we were actually using it. So in order to do that, because there's not an actual transfer that can be done from that fund to the other, legally, it can't be done in the accounting system. I needed to do a payment out from special bond retirement into, and then a receipt into the capital fund. So both of those are, have like a 256,000 and change just moved over so that the capital projects fund didn't show up as negative at the end of the year when the money's sitting in the bond account. Down to capital improvement fund. Other ProTech services, that's gonna be mainly CVE. There's gonna be some other people that fall in there, but CVE, and most of that probably would have been Dunham related. Our bills have already gone down drastically now that Dunham's ramped up. Police equipment, radio stuff. Actually, no, that one might be the car. That's the car. I apologize. That one is, right? Nope, I lied. We do have a line for the car.
Yep.
So that is the $30-some thousand payment to the radios, plus anything else that we had to do related to the radios. And I'm trying to think if we got any new other big equipment over there. I want to say something in dispatch.
Did they get a new computer?
They're getting a new server, but I think that's on this budget. But we did have costs associated with getting the radios up and running, so we'll see. Now, we do have a payment coming due, on that Motorola lease for the radios. And then, 3,600 on equipment in finance. Computer upgrade, I'm just trying to think of what that was because I didn't spend money on a computer. And that is very general, so that could have been something, that we're paying TCC for, RAM upgrades and memory upgrades. It could be Mary's computer, Lisa's computer. It could be any of the computers because that's where we're putting those, other than Nancy's. Hers goes in a different fund. We did have stuff done down at the Recs department too because their computers were running slow. All right, the 58,000. I have to learn when we do police vehicles, it keeps going up every year, but the bigger cost is not the vehicles so much as the pairing up of the outfitting of the vehicle. So getting all the decals put on, getting all the equipment moved from the old vehicle into the new vehicle for computers and things like that.
Cameras.
Yep, cameras, everything. So that was the police vehicle that was picked up toward the end of the year. And I think that wraps it up on expenses. And then your general fund obviously just gives you kind of the combo of these two reports. The only thing we've got encumbered at the end of the year is $7,500 in the general fund for various items to be paid in 2022. So we are in good shape there because we don't really, we typically have a little bit more encumbered and we don't have encumbrances for things. So that leaves the deficit at 1.139 million. Yeah, 1,139,453.
Thank you, Angela.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
Well, I just had a quick comment.
Sure.
And it goes all the way back to page 1 of the general fund. It's just, it wasn't a question, it's more of a comment.
Oh.
And that is the, on the property tax allocation.
Oh.
Being separated out from the other special assessments. I know we had some conversation around that before. I think
Oh, okay, we can do that.
This would be the more accurate way for it to be reported, because if the $231,000 is the actual property tax received from the residents of Walton Hills, that should be reflected on a separate line item versus, combined with those other assessments for trash.
So, right, correct,
and
in the
sewer.
budget, we'll separate it
So
out.
this is really the way it should be, continuing on.
Yes, we should budget it separately as
Yes.
well, yes, absolutely. And that's how it comes over from the county, so. either into police pension, to special assessment, to general property tax. Any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Just from 2019, we talked about that $1.1 million deficit that we showed for last year, 1.139. If you take it from 2019 to 2021, and you add up the 20 and 21 actuals, we're actually to the good, $1,503,094.67. Because in 2020, we had the increase, we ended up with a surplus of $2,642,547.77. Last year, in '21, we were down $1,139,453.10. So basic math, that's $1,503,094.67. Surplus. And in 2019, we had a surplus of $735,174.60.
We're doing okay. Our budget for 2022 is well under our estimated resources from the county. So, yeah, so I mean, I think we're in good shape. I think we'll be okay. Hopefully no major repairs need to be done to anything that we didn't already plan for.
Anybody else have any questions? Any residents? If you can come forward, please, because we need to record you. And just state your name.
My name's Robin Chandler. I'm a Walton Hills resident. I have a question. The budgets and financial reports that you're reviewing, I'm sorry. Are these online? Can we access? I tried to look while you were talking.
They are not yet, and they used to be. And Mary is my guru to get them PDF'd, and then Lisa will get them to the website, or we now have a contact, actually probably make it even quicker to get them over to the county, and they'll put them directly up. So we did have a little lull in that. We can go back, put up everything from the past. So in the next, give me about a week and a half, and we'll have them all up. I mean, I could throw December up easy, but we'll put them all up so that you have every month of the year for the last couple of years that they weren't up. I feel like we stopped in March of 2020 or something like that.
I can't
just getting them
find,
up there.
can we get some type of information on how to find it? Because when I
Yeah,
search,
absolutely.
when I search, I can find the most recent report is September 2019, and the most recent annual report is 2016.
So we have not been doing annual reports. I think Katie and I had this conversation, someone asked about it. They used to actually do a whole big booklet and went to print and everything, and it was costing a ton of money. So the annual report is not something that's required, which is why it fell off the radar several years back, I guess.
So
before I
what
was
you were
fiscal
just
officer.
reviewing, can
But
that
yes.
be posted for us to review?
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
listening, but I'm a numbers person, I'm a CPA, I'd love to see it.
Absolutely, and I'm just going here now for my own benefit so I can see where we had all these, because I thought we had 20s up, but then I could totally be wrong about
Do we have
that.
an extra copy for that?
Yeah. we can give you-
Yeah, I do,
we
I
can
think.
give you a
Here.
Copy right now.
That'd be wonderful.
And
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Any records requests any resident has, I know there's residents sitting in here that call Angela and request financials, and she gets it. You know,
Yeah, I
there's-
think we
but
are.
it's all public record, everything, just so you
Right.
know. But we want to get it up on the
The
internet,
lady's
so that way
correct.
you
We
can
need
do
to
it.
put it up.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Maybe not, maybe
But I'm
it's-
just saying, if you wanted a
I
hard
wanna say
copy, some people
finance.
like hard
Let's
copies,
go in here.
even over that.
I'm fine
It
with
is.
online, I
Yeah,
just
so there's
couldn't find
those.
how to get the information.
Right.
So if we are, where we're going to put them, where to look in the future will be under government, go under Walton Hills, go under services, finance department, and then off to the right of there will be a link that has financial reports, and she is correct, it's going to 19. So we'll throw up all the rest of those, from the end of 19, all of 20, and all of 21's up there.
Thank you.
And then we'll start putting them up regularly. We got a county website, and it's like only one person can access the website, and then, we've got to do this, then get it over, and it's been tedious, but this person at the county, we learned once we weren't able to log in that if they'll let us utilize them, it gets done a lot quicker if we just tell them to do it. it. Not that Lisa's not totally quick with it, but we keep having glitches about
She
getting
keeps
on.
having to wait.
Yes, she does. Yes, we have to keep waiting because we couldn't get logged in for a while, and the server's only on her
Ms.
computer.
Nielsen?
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
In Lisa's defense, the county website was tough this last year and a half.
Oh, yeah, it's
2
been
years.
crazy. It's a crazy
Just
website. It's not
everything
Lisa
at
at
the
all.
county's been a little tougher, too.
They're efficient when you ask for something to be posted. I've asked and it's been posted the same day. It has nothing to do with Lisa. If we need her to get to something, as long as she can get logged in. And I have my own login too. I just haven't utilized it yet, because Lisa's really receptive to saying, hey, can you get this up there? And she does for me. But last week we couldn't get logged on at all. And I would say to the county, can we post this journal and can I post these tax forms? And they got them up 1, 2, 3, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Hi, Lee Nielsen, Tulip Lane. I'm here tonight because I'm a concerned citizen. I'm concerned about the accuracy of our village finances, and this is not to be a ding against you, Angela, but $1 million error is not a minor problem. It's a big problem. I'm concerned about the transparency of our village finances, even though we say we publish the finances. There are some areas that I'm very concerned about. There was a committee of citizens who got together and made some recommendations about the event center, and you guys have all heard that. We also asked for finances related to that, and we got some finances, but there were major things missing. Personnel cost of maintenance, taxes owed, the fence, the seeds, the mulch, all the things that you talked about tonight. So that was a very abbreviated view without the transparency to say what's really going on with that particular facility. I'm concerned that there appears to be an approach that all will be fine once the Ford property is starting to generate some taxes. And I would love that, but I think that that's a few years away before we actually see any money. I worry that when our leadership says things like, let's try it for a year and then decide. And that was a comment about the event center in particular around not making any significant changes. I'm concerned that basic maintenance is being postponed. The roof. I sat in this council meeting, the COW meetings over the last year, maybe I was online, conversation about the roof, discussion about $400,000 needed for the roof, and I think we need buckets. We may not get a roof. And I listened to Rob tonight, and it was distressing, because Rob's talking about a 5-year plan 5 years ago that has not yet been completed. So he's asked for another, and that's great, but is this really good department of ours that gets the biggest accolades in this community going to suffer through another 5 years of patching? But primarily, I'm concerned about what I see is an overall planning approach for today and for the future. I worry that we're drifting. In my own home, I have to plan for good days and not so good days. I have to maintain reserves for potential problems. I have a furnace problem this week, a couple $1,000s. I have to be very clear on what monies are coming in and what must go out. I have to have accurate information. The village is my home. It's your home too. And we need to manage it better. I recommend we start by ensuring our financial house is in order. I heard a lot of comments tonight about, I need to check on that, I have to call that, I have to figure that one out, I'll look into that. We need to know. We need to know. And we need to do something around the auditor. I'm hearing that that's a state auditor, is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, it's the auditor.
Yeah, my recommendation is somebody who's completely separate, completely unconnected.
Because we're statutory, we have to use the auditor of state.
We could also use a secondary auditor,
And that would cost us money. We can. do
and that would cost us money. The bigger concern is not the minor cost of an auditor, it's the major cost of making sure we really know what's going on with our books. We need to know that as you guys, as the administration, and as us as citizens. We need to know that the monies that we are spending for our taxes and all the rest, are being utilized in the best way possible. We need to do what I do in my home. We need to say, I have X amount of money. Well, I can't go buy that new fence, if you will, because I don't have enough money for that. We need to make those kind of decisions, but we can't make them until we really understand where the numbers are. We citizens depend on you. You people sitting here are the stewards of this community. You're the stewards of Walton Hills. And a steward is somebody who serves and protects. I trust you to do that. I want you to do that. I want to support you in doing that. And I want you to do your part. As a council, you guys have a part. You did some of it tonight. Dig into the numbers, keep digging into the numbers, and making sure you have really good information so that you can make good decisions. I can't make good decisions in my home if I don't know how much money's coming in, or I don't know what I have to spend it on. I need you, our council, our mayor, to be true stewards of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nielsen.
If I may.
If
Do
there's,
you, Madam Chair? Can I?
Well,
if you would like.
I'll go first, Madam Chair, since I'm the mayor, if you're okay with
I'm
that.
surprised, fine.
Okay. I just want to answer a few of your questions, Lee. I made one quote, let's try it for a year, and that's relating to the rental of the event center.
Right.
So I referred that one quote to one item, not anything else, not vehicles, not anything else. And and I'll just say what that was, just to clear it up for the audience and the people listening. I feel in a non-COVID year, we should try renting that just to residents, because it's starting to catch on. And there has been residents in 2021 that wanted to rent the facility, and they couldn't because it was rented to a non-resident. I feel that as mayor, it's still up to council, that it's an amenity to the village, and I think as it catches on, I think it will, I don't think it will ever make money, but I think the intention of the rentals will help offset the expenses of the event center. And that is what most communities do, probably like 90% of them. It's an amenity. You move into a community because you want physical activities or whatever. So that was the only comment, was let's try the event center for 1 year. The other thing, because not only have I been mayor.
Do we know, Mayor, do we know what the real cost of the event center is?
Yes, what we pay, yeah, we have it all in utilities.
Well, we saw
And what we
an
pay out.
accounting
It's all
of
right.
it that was pieces and parts. It didn't include a lot of
You're getting
things.
pieces and parts because we do not keep separate accounting for it. Our accounting system through the Auditor of State does not have a feature to keep a separate entity in there, unless we want to, I mean, I can talk to the auditors, we'd have to do a whole separate system just for that, as well as separate bank accounts and everything. And I don't think we're at that level with the event center yet. I mean, the rest of you can correct me if you think you need to move that route. But right now,
Well, right
you're
now-
getting the quick and dirty version of what I'm able to pull for you in the midst of pulling the bigger picture. And the reason those financials were available as they were, and I will get them through end of the year for you, same basic sketch, is because I had to give them to the county. Because this building, as I've said it before, and I know some of you have come to the revelation that, oh my gosh, there's an outstanding property tax bill. Yes, when I speak to you and say we cannot make a profit on that building, I'm not just pulling words out of the air. I've been dealing with the county since 2020 to make sure that we end up being tax exempt, because when it was purchased, all of the proper channels were not gone through to do that. And so having to have given them a bunch of answers to questions on the use of the facility, and then doing these financials that you saw, that's what's been sent over to the county, because they asked for a basic income statement and expense statement of what goes on in there. I mean, we're talking down to the minimalist of yoga. Yoga is a public, for-profit event. That alone could cause us to have to pay some property taxes. So yes, we can get more information. It's just going to take more time. I mean, obviously, we know that I'm, and I will address this before we leave too, assistant-wise, for my position, but right, like, I can't stop the train from rolling in the 4 jobs that I do here, and I'm not gonna lie, right, I need an assistant because it's getting harder to keep up. Taxes, we got this, I'm clerk of council, I've got a lot going on. So in order to keep bills paid and money getting into the bank, deposits getting in, and all the basics, it takes a lot of time to stop and go say, all right, what part of this Cintas bill belongs to the event center? What part of this belongs to the, buildings and land, we have a specific line item for the rec department in general. That doesn't even mean that, oh, we bought new tables and it's going toward events. Same thing with salaries. We used to pay someone a contractor wage. Right now, that's an all-encompassing thing. Natalie's down there handling it, and now with Mary too. So no salary has changed, but they are considered our administrative and our rec director. So there's not gonna be a separate salary breakout because we're getting the benefit of everybody here in the village doing multiple jobs under their job title. If that helps that.
Madam Chair,
Okay,
because this links to that. The comments about the 5, and Brian, you can attest to this, and other members here. We've had 5-year plans. Don, you used to come to council meetings years ago. We've always had 5-year plans, and we've continued them. What we have done is we haven't executed them.
Right.
Because we don't have the money. We didn't have the money. We were being good stewards of the money, just what you said, like your house. You got to keep your expenses lower than your revenues, or it doesn't balance, and that's what we did. I mean, over the years, we have, and things have suffered. There's no doubt about it. We got it in line, and now we're trying to get back into a more routine basis. I sat on this council where we had to do just that. We had to say, put Band-Aids on it, because our expenses were exceeding our revenues.
So
And
in my home, when expenses exceed revenues, I cut something.
Right, and that's what we did. And
Yeah.
that's exactly
And
where I got
we
used at.
as a
I don't want-
community
Yes.
actually purchased. And I'm not here to talk about the event center, but we as a community went off and purchased an event center, which is costing us money every single year. So, that's one of those things where you say, is that in our 5-year plan? To
Let me
put
talk
ourselves
about
in
that.
debt for that kind of purchase? And long-term debt.
Let me, okay, Madam Chair, I was on council. I voted for before they offer it and put it up for sale, you have to make a decision on this, okay? It was a tough thing for us council to do. First of all, we were taking away the sewer bill, okay?
Right.
And every time that sewer bill comes to my house, even my own wife still cringes and say, how did you vote for it? But in this position, you vote for things that even affect yourself, because you got to do what's right for the village. We are not only responsible to the residents, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the village of Walton Hills, to this municipality and around us. But what happened was, so they came and said they're going to sell it to us, okay? Before that, we did a survey, our residents wanted us to build a $2 million rec center at one time. We felt we couldn't afford it as council. Thank God we didn't. We'd be like a lot of communities trying just to support the pool. But we thought about what could happen to that property. First of all, you can't put it's in the country home district. So if anybody thinks you could sell the property and put anything more than a church or houses there, you can't. Those are the only 2 things you can put there.
An event center.
No, only if they're operated out of a church. We could not sell it.
Are we operated out of a church?
We're the municipality.
We're a municipality, we're a nonprofit, okay?
So do we have any understanding of, we're 2,300 people in this village, is that correct? Right about 2,300 people?
Yeah, between 23 and 24, correct.
How many people actually use the center every year? And we could even double count. So if you had 6 people at yoga once a week, you could call that 24 people, or 24 interactions. I'm just curious, because I hear you, and I've heard you say this
Looking like
before,
crazy.
Don. Mr. Mayor, I've heard you say, we want this as an amenity for our village, and I get that. But are we using it that way? Do we have enough people actually saying, wow, that's a place where I want to be?
Lee, let me answer this for you. because we've had many meetings on that. Brian has many rec meetings. And just like I said about pushing for a 1 year, can we use it more? Of course, but we think that's happening.
Do we
Okay?
know, do we
know-
have the
know
numbers?
it's
Do we have the
happening.
data? Do
Well,
we
yeah,
have
we got the
data?
data, we're ready. But let's get back to something. I want to get back to something. You know, like Angela stated, we're still working with the county to get that exemption, okay?
in their
For
court.
non-profit status for that building, because we don't want to pay property tax, okay? Taking this long is pretty common, okay? Our economic development person, consultant Tom Jordan, who is also the economic development consultant for North Royalton, they got about 9 properties that they're waiting for. Sometimes a non-exempt property, all of a sudden the county puts taxes on it, and it takes a year to even clear that off. But I thought what was interesting as we go through this and we look at, which we distributed to some members out here,
Oh, 400 and some odd thousand dollars
it's worth
for it.
$900,000 and we paid a lot less.
You
for
bought it for
For-
we owe $445 on it now.
$445.
So we owe
sold-
half of the appraisal
Not
value.
bad equity for 3 years. I would say it wasn't a bad investment for the village.
Depends on how we use it. But that's my point.
My point is, we still have a valued property up there.
No,
Can't
I
argue
won't
that.
disagree that it's a valuable
And we paid
property.
less for it than the appraised value. So that's not a bad deal. Because we can always sell it. There might be a time, hopefully, we're hoping we don't, because what we're hoping for, and I know you could mention the hope of the Ford plant, but we all do know, and this will be it for me, because I know we have our other meeting, is that is a very important thing. That's my big focus, is that Ford plant. It's the largest parcel, one of them, in Cuyahoga County, in the state, and it will change the face of the village. Doesn't mean
when will
put
we
all our
begin to-
eggs in one basket, but
Yeah.
it will. Smith and Oley, we signed a great thing. They're going to be expanding this year. They have 2 years to build a property, or that land we sold them is coming back to us. But that's not going to happen. They're very excited about expanding their
When
offices.
will we see income from the Ford property?
We'll see. We won't see a large amount until they get around, but they're going to start. We're hoping they start construction this year. So we'll see some revenue from. We'll see more than what we have seen
More on the goose egg.
for
Well,
the
yeah.
last 5 years, which is nothing.
So
Plus the
I'm
blight
gonna come
of it.
back, I'm gonna come back to my point, because I think, and somebody said this, and I thought it was interesting, keeping things going. So I think that that's kind of the sense that I get, is we're keeping things going. And what I'm saying is, I think it's really, really important to sit back and say, where the heck are we going? Could we begin a strategic plan? We talked about this on several COW meetings. Could we begin a strategic plan? Could we get an outside auditor to make sure we know what we're looking at in terms of the data? Can we begin to look at this village and say, as a citizen of the village, my job is to make sure we're in great shape moving forward? That's your job too. We're all citizens of the village. So that's the point I want to make. I don't want to fuss about the event center. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just one piece of the puzzle. It matters in that way, but it's a piece of the puzzle. What I'm trying to encourage this group to do is to begin a series of good, solid, long-range looking at meetings. And to do that, you need good data. And as much as we think that our data is good, the fact that we had this little shock in the last couple of weeks that there was an error puts every number in question. So we need good data. So that's what I'm recommending. I don't want to beat anybody up. I'm recommending we move forward. We understand our role as steward. I feel like a steward of the village. I feel like one of the important roles that I have is to speak up. And I'll volunteer for anything, but I'll speak up and say, here's what I'm concerned about as a citizen of this village, as a steward of this village. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Lee.
Nielsen.
Madam
We need to wrap up so we can get on to the
have a
council
Quick
meeting.
logistical comment.
And Angela, if you.
Okay, so quick logistical comments, just in reference. We use UAN, which is the Auditor of State Finance System. So what you see on that report 52 in the actual columns each month is not, there's no room for margin of error. I can't reconcile a month if I've forgotten to enter something received into the bank, or if I've forgotten to enter an expense, okay? Because I go daily and it's going to show me that we're off by something. Now, where there's margin for error is the hand-typed numbers, which is the budget we create each year, right? Because that's me as a person typing in. So the figures you're seeing that are your final figures, really, there's not much, there's not a margin of error there for you to be concerned that those are off. And when I say, let me check into it, it means I, as much as I have the memory of an elephant, need to go print a ledger out of the system to see who did I pay in this line item, because sometimes I remember exactly what goes in there after 5 years and sometimes I don't. So it's not like I'm unsure of something, it is, oh, this line has $3,900 in it. I can go back and I can look at a ledger for you and tell you exactly what vendors were paid out of that line and why it went over or why it didn't go over or what's in it. It's not a matter of uncertainty on my part. So just to put everybody at ease, yes, can I have a fat finger error on entering a budget? Sure thing, that's me typing it in. But the accounting numbers are the accounting numbers out of the UAN system. So those are pretty confident there. And as long as I've been here, we haven't had any issues. Even before I was sitting in this seat.
Thank you, Angela.
Absolutely.
I would
Madam
just
Chair.
I'd like to say that I believe we're all trying to head in the same direction. And I am trying to move things along by having these meetings, even though we went through this budget so that we had it open for everybody to see and be able to go through and to hear what's actually going on. So I think we are all working in the same direction. Some people might view the event center as a noose, while others, it's their Christmas tie. I think we all still need to work in the same direction. We need to get the most use out of it. And Angela has been working with that, which I will ask you during the council meeting, because I would really like us to get to that, about the property taxes, just to explain a little bit more in depth.
Absolutely.
But at the COW meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick statement. I've been on council, mayor's been on council, and Mayor Colgraff, he's been in the mayor's position and on council through a very tough time. Since Ford decided to close and leave us and take over $2 million out of our budget. Then our house left and slapped us in the face again. We, not patting ourselves on the back at all, because we can always improve, always. And that's what we always look to do. We always look to improve. Just like we had the meeting tonight, we need to improve our accounting to ourselves and to the residents to see how these numbers are shaking out and improve the visibility to the residents. So there's always room for improvement. But we did something here that a lot of communities around us did not do through this time. And that was keep us out of fiscal emergency. And we still have the lowest taxes pretty much in the county. Okay, we did that. Okay, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but we did that. I also won't take slings and arrows needlessly either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Again, I believe that we all want to work towards the same end. And I understand feelings can get hurt, tempers can get hot, we can feel like we're being condemned. So I understand that. But I don't believe that anybody is truly coming through here with any animosity, and I certainly
No,
hope
it's not
not.
meant like that. It's just meant to clear the air.
Exactly.
If you did, you wouldn't survive in politics.
Exactly. No,
I'd be mad at everybody.
we can
I
always
don't want that.
improve, and we always look to improve.
I'd even be mad at my neighbors.
And so with
I
that,
love it.
at 7:24, I'd like to ask for adjournment of the finance meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
First.
First by Brian, second by Mary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That is at 7:24.
you guys want to take a minute break, and then I'll get John, and then we'll start right into the committee of the whole?
Yeah.
Anybody want to use the restroom real quick or anything?
I do.
Angela, do we need to do another link or?
Oh, I have a link. I
You
have
have a
another
separate
link.
link?
I do. Thanks for reminding me. And this thing, that noise you kept hearing kept bouncing in and out.